Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll profile Fargo-Shanley High School's Poetry Out Loud competition. But first, joining me now is Mark Watney, the new North Dakota Farmers Union president. Mark, thanks so much for joining us today. Now I say new, so I mean, how new are you?
Well, I was elected at the convention in middle of November of 2013.
Okay. With that said, tell the folks a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're originally from.
Well, I'm a farmer from Belleville, North Dakota, and I spent quite a bit of time involved in Farmers Union early on, being a county president. I actually served on the state board for a period of time. And then they asked me to actually be on the staff, so I was on the staff for about 15 years. And after that, I went back to my farm for a period of time and decided that I was interested in running, and I had some encouragement from other people to run for the position, and we were fortunate enough to be able to win in November, and here we are.
Well, now you say that, so it seems like sort of a natural transition then. So you were on the staff, you went back and did some more farming, is that what,
yes,
the way you said it? And then, so how did you prepare for the office, or, how do you do that?
Well, it's a lot to learn. We're quite an organization with just a lot of assets and a lot of effort. So by being there, it really helps. But serving in multiple positions actually got me the history and understanding the true mission of the organization. And of course, having that farming background is essential. You do have to be a farmer producer to be elected to the North Dakota Farmers Union.
Well, with that said, you mentioned mission. So I guess what is the mission, and let's start. What is the mission of the organization?
Well, the mission through education, cooperation, legislation, we support the health of the farmers, family farmers, rural communities, and so forth. We're an education organization. That's our primary goal. It's kind of the underlying base. And then secondary from that, we work with cooperatives, and we are an advocate legislatively for farmers and ranchers.
Okay. So then what does the president do with your role? I mean, are you traveling to Washington a lot, or are you in the state mostly, or what?
Well, the president's role really becomes pretty intensely working towards maintaining dollars and making sure budgets are met and so forth. You also sit on the board of our Farmers Union Service Association, which is an agency, and that agency has about 100 agents underneath it across the state of North Dakota selling product and so forth. So you're managing not only the farm organization investments, you're managing that insurance program. You will tend to get elected to a mutual insurance board, so you have to oversee that. And then you do represent North Dakota at our National Farmers Union level, which does include a number of other committees and other areas that we have investments in that you have to monitor and make sure. And again, that's all about taking the membership money, the dues that come in, and then some educational funds that come in, and then taking the investment dollars to be able to perform what we do at the North Dakota Farmers Union.
Well, you talked a lot about the money, so let's talk, how is it funded? How does that work?
Well, we get dues. Our dues are $30. A portion of that gets dedicated to different things, but some goes on to National Farmers Union, some goes so we can do our magazine, some of that goes back to our county organizations. So that's one part of it. The second area is the cooperatives. Many in the state pay us some educational funds, and that is to do primary education about our cooperative business model. We run a youth camp with over 1,000 campers attending. They actually set up a youth cooperative store, a camp Farmers Union cooperative store, where they sell food pop and other things, and at the end they run a meeting and they close down the co-op, and they tend to give those earnings rather than back to the patrons of the camp. They tend to give them to the food banks or to other generous things. So they really do get the handle on how to work for a cooperative and how a cooperative functions.
Okay. Now, do you spend much time in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, some. We have two purposes. One, obviously, is to be out there to lobby and work with the people we know that we can support and support National Farmers Union. We also have restaurants in D.C., but the advocacy work is probably the primary focus. The secondary, of course, is we've been trying to connect closer to the consumer with U.S. family farm food. And that process has been through restaurants, and we're finally getting those to work very well.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk some about the restaurants? Because I know I've been to one of them.
Sure.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the restaurants that you've got in D.C. and why you've got them there.
Yeah, it was a number of years ago when group of farmers that were part of some of the value-added concepts, from pasta to bread and all those things. Some of them working, some not, and everybody trying to figure out how to get more dollars from the, in essence, the food dollar. So the system, I thought, well, let's go right to the consumer. Let's find an avenue where we can go retail and then hopefully build a system back. And that's where it got started. And we weren't real smart at the beginning. Of course, I think that goes with territory of new business. But anyway, after a little bit of time and some management changes, now we have what's called Founding Farmers Restaurant. We have a Farmers, Fishers, and Bakers, and we have a Founding Farmers called MoCo that's in Maryland. And the 4th restaurant will be opened in Tyson's Corner, Virginia in September, October timeframe. But they're doing wonderful. We're serving in the one that's doing the best, nearly 10,000 people a week. It's the #1 requested restaurant on Open Table Reservations, which is a website in the nation. And in the DC area, our 3 restaurants are all in the top 10. So we're quite proud now, and even though we have to overcome some of the early challenges, and one of our restaurants actually flooded, it's coming around, and we're getting our debt paid down. We're sending small amounts back to the original investors. But part of that marketing tool is because it's owned by family farmers, not just sourced food, owned food. And then, of course, we're trying to get 100% U.S. family farm food, but there's just certain products you can't quite get. There's spices and so forth.
Sure. As I said, I've been there, been to one of them anyway. But do you feel like you have to educate lawmakers about the value of farming? And
yeah, more and more all the time. It's real hard to understand the successful food system we have. A lot of people take it for granted that they go to the grocery store, and I mean, you got endless choices. And in comparison to other countries, I don't want to say food is inexpensive here, but in comparison to other countries, how much the individual has to spend of their dollars is substantially less, somewhere below 10% of their incomes, which you can't say that in too many places, which is really a good thing for the economy. They have dollars to buy other things. And so because we're so successful in agriculture, our farmers are so good at what we do, we've kept those prices in check, and they're being rewarded to the consumer. So the Farm Bill, in essence, is something that helps us through them times when those commodity prices drop and go to a level where we can't really support ourselves, but that helps ensure that we continue to have enough land in production and growth in technology to be able to keep the food costs low.
I'm going to jump ahead and because you mentioned Farm Bill. What do you think of the most recently passed Farm Bill?
We did, from our perspective, very well. In fact, we studied it a little bit. In National Farmers Union combined, we believe we got over 80% of what we wanted in the Farm Bill. They're never perfect. You never get everything you want and so forth. But with all the budget concerns and with that partisan stuff going on in D.C., it was amazing that we were actually able to pull out a Farm Bill that looks this good.
Yeah, because what I was going to say is, why does it take so long, and what are the issues in getting one through legislation?
Yeah. Well, you have some geographical differences along, again, with the partisanship, is everything out there is dealing with that. But there's differences amongst commodities, there's differences among geographical regions. There's some people that like parts of a program better than other. We were quite pleased that the direct payments were taken and then put into some other areas to enhance crop insurance and so forth. It's real hard to defend direct payments when times are good. So I think this is substantially better, because now farmers will only really receive money if they actually have weather problems or problems outside of their control or massive drops in price. That makes quite a bit more sense. Really, a program should only help when we need the help. It shouldn't be helping when we're doing quite well.
Yeah. So what are the values of Farmers Union, and do they differ, and how do they differ, like from North Dakota Farm Bureau?
Yeah. Well, let me just talk about the Farmers Union ones first. We really support the family farm model. We think that's good. A lot of people suggest to us that, well, it's such a small farm. No, it's really not. A family farm can be a larger farm. It can be an average farm. That isn't of concern to us. What's important to us is that it's a family that's really putting the time and labor in, and they can even have some hired help. It doesn't really matter. But we're really looking at something where they put the majority of the time, labor into the operation. Our rationale for that is that keeping a number of people out on the land helps support those communities, keeps the smaller towns viable. And so we're really a broad-based organization, from farming to community to different things that we believe enhances the life of not only the farmers and ranchers, but the people living in rural communities. It's hard for me to talk about Farm Bureau. We get along on a lot of things. I meet with some of their people. We probably will try to reach out again before our session coming up here next January for the legislative session, and we'll find some things that we agree on, and a lot of times there's more than people think. You know, it doesn't get recorded too often when Farm Bureau and Farmers Union say, okay, we like this together. Nobody wants to write about that, but if they can find one we disagree on. But they like landowner rights, we like landowner rights. They like good prices in agriculture, we like good prices in agriculture. They like seeing a robust rural economy, we like seeing a robust economy. So I really don't know if there's as much difference as people want to believe. Plus our memberships overlap dramatically. So that's kind of telling in itself.
Yeah, you said membership's $30, I think, and how many members do you have?
Our membership is for a family, and we have over 40,000, approaching 41,000 members, which represents, you know, could be a husband, wife, and 2 kids. Yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah, does your organization endorse candidates or not? I mean, like the Ag Commissioner race may be a competitive one this upcoming season.
The North Dakota Farmers Union does not, and we never will as far as I can control it. And we do not donate to campaigns. No money.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about your farm in Velva, and what's the operation like there? What do you grow?
Yeah. Well, I'm relatively small now. I was a little bigger, but once I took this job on, I've let my rented land go to my brother. But we've been a family operation. We have the farms on the original homestead, and my dad's still living and helping farm, and my brother's there and his son are there. My sister has a few pieces of land that we farm for her. And my son's going to come to NDSU this fall, and he's going to go back and farm. At least that's the plan currently. We'll see how that goes when he goes to college. So I farm just under 1,000 acres. Probably was about an 1,800 acre farm prior to taking on this responsibility. And we wheat, barley, corn, beans, canola. We are shifting more to corn and beans. Quite interesting. We have not really did anything in the fields yet this year. We've been just saturated up in north central North Dakota. And I never thought I'd ever hope for less rain, because that's generally not somebody from western North Dakota that would suggest that. But we've been really inundated from rain for like 20 years. So, but farming's been very successful. We're proud of that. I think Farmers Union feels that we've had a hand in helping some of that. We support a lot of renewable fuels. We just do a lot of things to enhance income. And farmers should not really complain much about these last 5 years. It's probably been the best times we've ever seen. And our goal is to hopefully keep that rolling like that. Okay.
Well, those are the good times, but what are some of the real issues facing farmers in agriculture right now?
Immediately, the rail is a challenge. There just is not enough infrastructure here to manage both the oil and the grain at the same time. So we're concerned that the rail is giving some priority to maybe oil, maybe coal, and we're sitting on a lot of inventory right now. I've not been able to deliver some of the grain I've sold myself, simply because the elevator opens up for a day for taking grain, and if you're not there with everything, you don't get time to haul it. Second, this weather is becoming an issue. It just really starting to bog down on people with the so-called wet cycle we're in. It's just amazing that crop insurance is starting to consider some land normally wet now, which means you can't buy preventive plant coverage on it. So you're starting to lose some of your ability to insure land that typically you would farm. And I know people think that's it's a wetland. It really isn't. It's the wetlands are connecting. I mean, we got areas between wetlands that are just standing water, which have never had water before, or at least not in a long time. So that's the next issue. So we got to try to work with crop insurance. Planting deadlines for crop insurance are going to start to play real quick. And then the question becomes, from my perspective, the crop insurance would be better off if they would extend those, because they're going to pay out for sure. That way, if we plant it, there's a chance that we'll get a later frost and things will be fine. And some of their deadlines, I think, are a little bit early, and they're based on a calendar, which the calendar isn't always accurate. Spring breaks differently and fall comes differently, and sometimes you just have to take a little more gamble and go into June with planting and so forth.
With that said, how has farming changed in your lifetime? I mean, we won't go back too far. In your lifetime?
Well, the technology is just amazing, and the size and horsepower of equipment, it's really exciting. I know a lot of people will say, well, that's somewhat a death to a smaller farmer, and it is. I mean, it is a little bit of a challenge, because not every farm will compete at the same level. But there is somewhat of a reality. An industry does need to grow, and we really need to see that. And I don't know, this will seem a little bit of a funny story, but I hadn't been running tractors too much for a while, and I was back up there, and the auto steer is not the most uncommon thing anymore, but the habit of reaching up and grabbing the steering wheel after you kick the auto steer in and kicking it out was hard to break, because it was just natural that you reach up and grab that and start driving yourself after you'd kicked it in. So it's amazing, and you know what? It's going to even be more amazing in the next 5 years. We do a tech conference at our office in January. We've filled the doors up totally with 300, 350 people. And Google Glasses, some of this stuff where you take a picture and you got these glasses on and you can send it to your agronomist and they can comment and you can see it right through. You can take a picture of what's happening. We had all that stuff sitting at our office. We're going to get into a genetics conference where we talk about what we can do with seed. These are things that are really exciting, and the farmers will supply the world with food. I have no doubt, and we can meet the energy needs. I think it's just totally easy for us. I think we really have the capacity to do it.
Well, you mentioned the rail issue, but how has the oil boom impacted farming in North Dakota?
Yeah, it has a big impact where it's actually happening. There's just so much traffic and traffic patterns and so forth that nobody could envision that we'd need up there. So the infrastructure is just not catching up as quick as it should, and I'm not sure you could do it as quick as it should, even with the amount of oil out there. The big problem I hear from ranchers and farmers out there is they can't move their equipment down the roads. They have to do it at night because you try to take a 30-foot header down a road. So they're real concerned about that. There is some dust issues for those high traffic roads where you plant next to them. There's just so much dust coming off of them for maybe 100 feet out, 100 yards out in the field. It takes the yield down some. On the other hand, you got farmers that are fortunate enough to have the mineral rights, and that's fewer than the rest. They're really doing well, which helps implement dealers and so forth. So land rights is another thing. Making sure the oil industry does a really nice job of putting them out and taking care and not spilling, and utilizing only a smaller amount of land and so forth, and then not being quite so disruptive. Thinking about where you put those approaches. And I think the oil industry gets substantially better at it. But early on, it was just go, 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 and nobody was thinking about long-term impacts. So,
well, Mark, we're winding down. How long is your term, and what is your main goal as president?
The term is 1 year. You run every year. It's actually state law. We have to run every year. And my primary goal is we're going to take what we're so good at, and that's grassroots efforts, and we're going to enhance that.
If people want more information about North Dakota Farmers Union, where's the best place for them to go?
Best place is probably the website, so www.ndfu.org. That's really easy. Phone number they can call in is 701-952-2304, and they can call me and talk to me. I'm open. If I'm available, I'll talk to people. I love hearing from the members.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for more. When it comes to the Poetry Out Loud competition, Fargo-Shanley High School has become the premier school in North Dakota. Year in and year out, the Shanley School champion either wins or places very high in the state finals. And much of the credit belongs to the beloved Shanley English teacher, Brian Geffrey. With his enthusiasm, Geffrey helps his students learn, recite, and interpret poems for the competition. This school year, Prairie Public was able to follow Shanley students as they went from classroom practice sessions to the all-school finals.
It was a picture I had after the war. A bombed English church. I was too young to know the words English or war.
The sponsors of Poetry Out Loud are the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation.
But now that you run and climb and leap?
This is a recitation competition, so they take poems that have been published and memorize and interpret those poems.
I gaze upon her rose-wreathed hair.
If they make it to the finals in Bismarck, they must have a poem that's under 25 lines, a poem that is from pre-20th century, and then a poem of their choice.
I think I know enough.
Usually people who move on to the next level have a variety of poems that they do to show the depth of their expression. Once they get it memorized, it's a lot easier for them to work on the emotion, but some people just won't ever get to that point. But the ones that do, they're the ones that really start to imagine what is in the poem, and then they bring out that in their voice. I really do believe that once you visualize it, it will naturally come out. Being able to speak clearly and use imagery in the way you speak.
He's different really in his teaching ways. He's just like, he wants us to really understand what we're learning and how we're learning it. He has a lot of class discussions to make sure we really understand what we're learning and like why we are learning it.
When Mr. Geoffrey talks about poetry, he just lights up. It's Poetry Out Loud's coming, Poetry Out Loud's coming, get ready and everything. You know, he really makes kids want to try. Like, he makes kids want to like learn the poetry and like look at the meaning behind the poem, and he helps kids along. He like helps them if they're not fully understanding what the poem is about, or if they don't really grasp what the poet's trying to say. He really helps with that.
Break up into little groups, 3 to 4, and I want you to practice your poem, okay?
Rejoice and men will seek you, grieve and they turn and go.
Please give your best and your most active attention to Timothy Murphy.
Yeah!
Between a marsh and Avril, when spry beginneth to springa, the little fool hath here a will on here a lud to singa. Ich lib in love longing for semlicus to balla thinga, he my me bliss bringa, ich ham in here a bon doen. Now, of course, for you kids, that's like listening to chamber music. But that's what the language sounded like 200 years after the Norman conquest, when the Norman French...
Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice.
From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those
who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough.
Laughs with you. Weep, and you weep alone. For the sad old earth. I like that it's a simple way to express your emotions, and just write or say what you want to say without it being too long or it being too short, or you can just express your emotion in a good way.
There's a place I know where the birds swing low and wayward vines go roaming, where the lilacs...
What if it were possible to vanquish all this shame with a wash of varnish, instead of wishing the
everything but death comes to me and makes me work and give up what
gathers to a greatness like the ooze of oil.
Oh, she cried, and all the rest unsaid, identical came back in sorry echo.
Before high-piled books and charactery hold like rich garners the full ripened grain.
But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage.
5 or 6. Okay. All right. Next was Grace Kidder.
0 mistake.
I was going to say that was really well. That changes the rhythm where the rhythm is important to the poem.
Yes,
Julia was next.
0 mistake.
Gregory Beauclair.
All right, no, he did the repeat. Yeah.
She got a 31 for me.
I got a 33.
You know, so the way she was comfortable with it, the way she recited it. Okay. All right, next was
Maddie Dancer.
When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain.
The thought that stings. How are you? Nothing.
5 p.m. on the nose. They open their mouths and it rolls out.
Sometimes I growl, shake myself,
and he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace.
You squeezed its leash in your fist. It followed where you led. Tick-tock, nodding its wooden head.
My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. And his tune is...
Aye, now by all the bitter tears that I have shed for thee, the racking doubts, the burning fears, avenged they well may be.
The ruined city still seemed noble. The cathedral with its roof blown off was not less godly.
I don't block the audience out at all. I actually take in the audience. I love watching their eyes and seeing their reactions, and I tend to feed off that. I tend to feed off a crowd. If I was saying my poem one-on-one to you, you'd probably not think it's very good, but I gain a lot of energy from the crowd in the eyes.
For the second year in a row, we have as our champion, Julia Johnson.
I loved hearing the other competitors say their poems, and I just get so happy for them when they're able to do as well as they do, because the competition does get stiffer as you get higher up, and people are gonna be good. But I mainly focus on myself and what I need to do and how well I can do.
Then there will be no speaker in all the world say the name, the people, with any fleck of a sneer in his voice or any far-off smile of derision. The mob, the crowd, the mass will arrive then.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funded by the North Dakota Council on the Arts and by the members of Prairie Public.